My mother-in-law moved into our house on a Tuesday, and by Friday I had already started a spreadsheet. Not because I'm obsessive, not because I'm cold, because I knew. The moment my husband Owen said just until she gets back on her feet, I felt it in my chest, the way you feel a door closing behind you before you realize you've walked into the wrong room. Her name is June. Owen's mum, 61 years old, recently divorced from his father after 34 years of marriage, and according to Owen, completely blindsided by the whole thing. She has nowhere to go, he told me, sitting on the edge of our bed at 11 at night, his voice doing that thing it does when he's already decided something and is just waiting for me to agree. It'll be temporary, a month, maybe 6 weeks. I am 31 years old. I work in healthcare billing. I manage claims for a regional hospital network, which means I spend my entire professional life catching numbers that don't add up. I am very good at spotting things that don't add up. I said okay. I said it because Owen looked genuinely worried about her, and because I loved him, and because I told myself that 6 weeks is 6 weeks. It has a beginning and an end. I could do 6 weeks. That was 9 weeks ago, and June is still here. But I'm getting ahead of myself. When June arrived, she came with 4 suitcases, a trunk of what she called important documents, and a small decorative rooster that she placed on my kitchen counter without asking. I didn't say anything about the rooster. I told myself it was temporary. The first week was actually fine. She cooked dinner twice. She kept to herself mostly, spent a lot of time on the phone with her sister, and went to bed early. Owen was relieved. I thought, okay, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this will be fine. The second week, I noticed the grocery bill. We normally spend around $600 a month on food for the 2 of us and our daughter Lily, who is 4. With June added, I had mentally budgeted maybe $750. The second week alone, I spent $340 at the grocery store. I didn't say anything. I told myself she was settling in, that she was stress eating, that it would level off. It did not level off. By the end of week 3, June had developed a routine. She woke up around 10, watched television in the living room until noon, had a large lunch, napped, watched more television, and then joined us for dinner. She did not offer to cook again after those first 2 times. She did not offer to clean, to do laundry, to help with Lily. She existed in our house the way furniture exists, present, immovable, taking up space. I started keeping notes. Not because I was building a case. I told myself it was just so I could have accurate numbers when Owen and I talked about the timeline. The notes looked like this. Week 3 groceries, $290. Electric bill, up $47 from last month. June mentioned she likes the house cold. I turned the thermostat down to 68. She turned it back up to 74 when I left for work. Week 4, water bill arrived. Up $31. June takes long showers. I know this because she has mentioned twice that the water pressure in our house is better than a hotel. Week 5, I found a receipt in the recycling bin. June had ordered $80 worth of items from a home goods website, delivered to our address. A new throw blanket, a set of scented candles, a small wicker basket. She was nesting. She was decorating the guest room like it was hers. I did not say anything to Owen yet. I was watching. The thing about June that I need you to understand is that she is not malicious. She's not scheming. She is something almost worse in some ways. She is completely, utterly comfortable. She had been a homemaker for 34 years. She had never paid a utility bill in her life. She had never grocery shopped on a budget, never tracked what things cost, never had to. Her ex-husband, Owen's father, had handled all of it, and now she was in my house, and my house felt exactly like the house she had left. Warm, stocked, run by someone else. Owen didn't see it. He saw his mother watching TV and thought, she's healing, she's resting. Give her time. I saw the thermostat and thought, she has no idea she's doing this. Both things were true. Neither of them made it okay. The moment I think of as the shift happened on a Saturday morning in week 5, Lily was eating cereal at the kitchen table. I was making coffee. June came downstairs in her robe, opened the refrigerator, looked at it for a long moment, and then said without turning around, "We're out of the good creamer again." We're out of the good creamer again. We're out of? Not would it be okay if I picked some up? We're out of? Like she was reporting a household maintenance issue to the person responsible for fixing it. I stood there with the coffee pot in my hand, and I felt something shift inside me. Not anger exactly, more like clarity. You can grab some at the store, I said. Target's 10 minutes away. She turned around and looked at me the way you look at someone who has said something unexpectedly strange. Oh, she said. And then she went back upstairs. She did not go to Target. Owen picked up the creamer that afternoon when he ran an errand. He didn't even mention it. I waited until Lily was asleep that night. I sat Owen down at the kitchen table, not on the couch, not in bed at the table, because I needed us to be eye level and awake and in the room where the numbers were real. I showed him the spreadsheet, 9 weeks of costs. Groceries up an average of $280 per month. Utilities up $90. The streaming services she had asked to be added to our accounts. The extra gas from Owen making additional Target runs. The takeout we ordered on nights when dinner hadn't been planned because June had eaten through the groceries faster than expected. The total came to a little over $3,400 in 9 weeks. More than my car payment, more than our monthly contribution to Lily's college fund. Owen looked at the screen for a long time. She's going through a divorce, he said. I know. She doesn't have income right now. I know. She's my mum. Owen. I said his name carefully, the way you hold something fragile. I know she's your mum. That's why I've been patient. But she moved in 9 weeks ago, and she has not looked for an apartment. She has not applied for a job. She has not reached out to her sister about staying there. She has not done one single thing that looks like a plan. And I need to know what your plan is. He rubbed his face. He said he'd talk to her. I want to be fair here because I know how these stories can sound. The daughter-in-law who resented the mother-in-law, the wife who couldn't handle family. I want to be honest with you about what I was and wasn't willing to do. I was willing to let her stay for 6 weeks. I was willing to let that become 8 because I knew divorce at 61 is devastating and I have a mother of my own and I understood. I was not willing to become her financial support system indefinitely while she watched television and ordered wicker baskets from the internet. Owen talked to her. I don't know exactly what he said because he had the conversation while I was at work. When I came home, he told me she had agreed to start contributing a little and that they had discussed a timeline. I asked what the timeline was. He said they were thinking maybe 8 more weeks. 8 more weeks. On top of the 9 we had already done. I nodded. I went and gave Lily a bath. I thought about the fact that 8 more weeks would put us at 17 weeks total, which is just over 4 months, which is a full season of my life given to someone who couldn't be bothered to buy her own creamer. That night, Lily climbed into my lap while I was reading on the couch and she said, completely out of nowhere, "Mummy, why does Grandma June never go home?" I didn't answer right away. I hugged her and I thought, out of the mouths of babes. "Grandma June's home is being fixed up, baby," I said. Lily considered this. "How long does it take to fix a home?" I said I didn't know. The contributing did not happen. I mean, June did buy a box of granola bars at some point, and she paid for 1 pizza on a Friday night and made sure we all knew about it. But the utilities kept climbing. The grocery bill did not go down. And the timeline, the 8 more weeks, began to loosen the way timelines do when no one is enforcing them. Week 11. I found a packet on the doorstep. A medium-sized box addressed to June. Inside, based on what she showed Owen excitedly at dinner, were new curtains. For the guest room. She had bought curtains for a room she was living in temporarily. I excused myself from the table. I went and stood in the backyard for a while. The air was cold and the yard was dark and I stood there until I felt less like I was going to say something I couldn't take back. When I came inside, Owen followed me to the kitchen. "They were on sale," he said. I turned around and looked at him. My husband, the person I had built this house and this life and this daughter with, and I said as calmly as I could manage, "Owen, I need you to understand something. This is not about curtains." "I know," he said. "Your mother is not a guest anymore. She is a resident, and residents pay rent, or they have a real specific, written-down date when they leave. Not a vague idea, a date. He was quiet. I need you to pick one, I said, because I will not spend another 4 months like this. He didn't pick one. Not that night. He said he needed to think about it. He said I was being rigid. He said I didn't understand what his mother was going through. That one stung, because I did understand. And understanding is exactly what had gotten me to week 11 of somebody else's mother sleeping in my guest room and redecorating it with sail curtains. I gave myself 3 days to decide what I was going to do. I talked to my own mother, who has never liked confrontation, and who said diplomatically, "You have every right to feel how you feel." I talked to my friend from work, who said, "Girla, I would have cracked at week 4. I thought about what I actually wanted, which was not to blow up my marriage, not to make June feel unwanted, but also not to keep subsidizing an indefinite situation while being told I was the rigid one." On the 3rd day, I called a property manager in our area, not to move out, just to know what my options were, just to have information. She told me that a furnished short-term rental in our area, something comfortable, 1 bedroom, ran about $1,100 to $1,400 a month. Utilities included in most cases. I hung up and sat with that number for a while. Owen and I had been absorbing well over $400 a month in extra costs. Over 4 months, that would be $1,600 or more. For $1,600, we could have helped June pay 2 months of her own rent in her own space with her own thermostat, and everyone would have had their lives back. The more I sat with it, the less the situation looked like generosity. It looked like avoidance. Owen avoiding the discomfort of asking his mother to be responsible. June avoiding the harder work of starting over, and me absorbing all of it, being called rigid for wanting a plan. I made a plan. I didn't involve Owen in making it, which I know sounds like a marital misstep, but I had tried involving him, twice, in serious sit-down conversations, and both times I had been told to be patient or called rigid, and I was done being patient and I was fine being rigid. I found a 1-bedroom apartment in a complex about 4 miles from our house. It was $1,150 a month, and they had availability starting the following month. I toured it on a Thursday afternoon while Lily was at preschool. It was clean and quiet, and the windows let in a lot of light. The property manager told me the lease could be month to month to start. I took photos on my phone. I drove home. I made dinner. I waited. That weekend, I sat down with both of them, Owen and June, at the kitchen table. I brought my laptop. I said, "I've been thinking about how to make this easier for everyone. I found an apartment I think you'd like, June. It's close, it's nice, and month to month means no long-term pressure. Owen and I would like to help with the first 2 months of rent while you get settled and figure out your next steps." I turned the laptop around and showed her the photos. June looked at the screen. She looked at Owen. Owen looked at me. There was a long pause. Then June said quietly, "I didn't realize you were unhappy with me being here. I want to be careful about how I describe what happened inside me in that moment, because I don't want it to sound cruel. What I felt was not triumph. It wasn't anger. It was something exhausted and sad, because of course she didn't realize that was the whole problem. She had been comfortable, and that comfort had required nothing from her, so she had not noticed what it required from us. "It's not about being unhappy with you," I said. "It's about everyone having their own space that's better for all of us, including you." Owen said nothing for a moment. Then he said, "Mom, I think this could be good. I don't know what happened in Owen's head in those days between my ultimatum and this conversation. I don't know what he thought about or what he realized. I only know that when it mattered, he sat at the table and he said the right words, and that was enough. That was what I needed." June moved into the apartment 6 weeks later. I know 6 weeks sounds like a long time still, but it wasn't the open-ended kind of 6 weeks. It was 6 weeks, with a date circled on the calendar, a move-in appointment, a signed lease. Those 6 weeks felt completely different. She took the decorative rooster when she left. She also took the curtains. I stood in the doorway of the guest room after she was gone, And I just looked at the bare windows for a minute and felt the air in that room the way you feel. Air in a space that's been opened up after being closed too long. I stripped the bed. I washed everything. I put a plant on the windowsill. It's been 4 months since June moved out. Here is what I know now. She is doing okay. Better than okay, I think. She got a part-time job at a garden center about 2 months after she moved in, which she loves and which gives her somewhere to be and people to talk to. She calls Owen twice a week. She comes for dinner on Sundays, which is actually something I look forward to now that she goes home at the end of it. Owen and I had a long conversation, a real one, about a month after she left. Not a table conversation with a spreadsheet. A late-night kitchen conversation with tea, the kind where you say things you've been holding for a while. He told me he had been afraid that if he pushed his mother to leave, she would think he didn't love her. I told him that protecting our home wasn't the same as not loving her. He said he knew. I think he did. Lily asked me the other day out of nowhere, "Is Grandma June's home all fixed now?" I said, "Yes, baby. All fixed." She seemed satisfied by that. She went back to coloring. I have thought a lot about what I would say to someone in the beginning of this. In those first few weeks when everything feels like it might be fine, when you're telling yourself that 6 weeks is 6 weeks and you can handle it, I would say get specific before they arrive. Not after, not once you're already uncomfortable. Before. A date on the calendar. A conversation about money. A clear understanding of what temporary means. Because temporary without a deadline isn't temporary, it's just uncertainty with better PR. I would say the discomfort you feel about having that conversation is nothing compared to the resentment that builds without it. I would say you are allowed to love someone and still need them to have their own life. Those two things are not in conflict. They never were. I built this home. My name is on the mortgage. My paycheck buys the creamer. I am allowed to say when something isn't working. That's not rigidity. That's just being a person who knows what she has and what it costs to get it. Your sweat is in the walls. Don't let anyone make you forget that. I've thought about this a lot since June moved out. Not obsessively, not with bitterness, just the way you think about something that changed you a little, quietly, in ways you're still figuring out. What happened in my house over those 9 weeks wasn't dramatic. There was no screaming, no blowout, no single moment where everything shattered. It was slower than that. It was a thermostat turned up by 4 degrees, a package of curtains on the doorstep, a creamer nobody bought, small things, stacking up silently the way snow does. You don't notice the weight until you go to open the door, and it won't move. I used to think that patience was always a virtue, that the longer you hold on without complaining, the better person you are. I don't think that anymore. I think patience without a limit isn't virtue, it's just delayed resentment. And resentment is a terrible thing to build a house on. What I learned from June, and I mean this without cruelty because she is not a bad person, is that comfort without accountability will always expand to fill whatever space you give it. Not because people are greedy or malicious, but because it's human. We settle into ease. We stop noticing the cost when someone else is absorbing it. June wasn't taking advantage of me consciously. She was just comfortable. And I had made it too easy to stay comfortable. That's on me as much as it's on her. The harder lesson was about Owen. Because Owen knew he wasn't oblivious. He just chose the easier version of love, the kind that avoids hard conversations and calls itself kindness. Telling his mother she needed to move wasn't going to feel like love to him in the moment. But 9 weeks of watching me shrink inside my own home wasn't love either. It just looked quieter. Those are different things, and I think we both had to learn to tell them apart. Lily's question, "Why does Grandma June never go home?" stopped me cold, not because it was cruel, but because it was so completely clear. Children see the truth before adults are willing to say it out loud. She didn't have the vocabulary to understand leases or timelines or the social cost of drawing a boundary with your husband's mother. She just knew something was off. She could feel it, the way kids feel everything, without the filter, without the excuse-making, right in the center of it. I think about what kind of home I'm building for her, what she's learning when she watches me. I want her to see someone who loves with an open hand and a clear head, someone who is generous without being a doormat, someone who can look at a situation that isn't working and say so calmly and with a plan. That's the version of herself I hope she grows into, and I can only teach it by being it. The spreadsheet wasn't coldness, it was clarity. There's a difference, and I spent too long apologizing for it. You can love someone and still ask them to be responsible. You can welcome someone into your home and still say when it's time to leave. You can be kind and be firm in the same breath, and neither one cancels out the other. That's not rigidity, that's just knowing your own worth well enough to protect it. The guest room has a plant in it now. I water it every few days. It's doing fine.